poignant stuff. He found out that he had a daughter that he didn't know about in the present day. And
although she's a terrible actress, so it's...
And then we went back to the 60s and he'd learned Hello by Adele, who I think, after listening to him sing the lyrics, is a secret Goodnight Sweetheart fan. But what I would say is the poignancy, I don't think it sort of earned it, if you know what I mean, because what had happened with the fan wasn't that funny. No. You have to be funny in a comedy before you hit the sort of emotions.
This was a weird one to remake from the start, because it was one of those shows that was on for a long time, but nobody really...
It's like you mentioned, Luke, like 2.4 Children. It'd be like remaking something like that. Or
and why would you?
Like
it's not a classic.
Remember Brushstrokes?
No, we're not as
older.
No. But that's very similar. It's like, it wasn't all that funny, but it was just on a lot.
Or Waiting for God.
Yeah, something like that.
Ironically, they're both still alive. They could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of the people in 2.4 Children.
Yeah, 2.4 Children. On.
I mean, there were bits of it that were alright, but that's not very...
I did like the running gag where everywhere he went, they were just playing Hello by Adele.
Yeah.
Probably the best gag.
I don't know how they got music clearance on that, because
she's a big fan of Goodnight Sweetheart.
I guess she must be. It's the only thing I can think of.
Because I think if we just go to Our Girl quickly, because this links... let's go to the comedy pilots. Our Ex-Wife we talked about last week with Gary's seen it. Gary thought.
Yeah, I have to say I quite like this. I think out of the ones I've seen, this was one of the better ones.
Oh, out of the two you've seen.
Well, no, I also saw Porridge, and
well, that was not one of the pilots.
These are the pilots.
Okay, out of the two pilots I've seen, this is the one that I like the most. I think it was more an American-style sitcom, which is why I think I liked it, and I agree with what Matt said last week. The fact that you had Rose from 2.5 Men in it made it very sort of Americanized. The only thing I didn't really like Robert Webb. If it had been someone else but Robert Webb...
Did you not find them both very hateful characters?
But that was the point of it, but I didn't quite believe Robert Webb.
Yeah, but
as a hateful character.
It's quite hard to like them, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Well, that was the point. I mean, you had to like her... You had to like Rose. That was
Melanie
the
Lynch.
supposed to like, yeah. But I just think for me, Robert Webb, I don't know, it just didn't seem right. I would have liked someone else other than him.
I know what you mean, yeah.
But no, on the whole, and actually, I could see them doing something with that. I quite like the bits where they sort of in Dreamland killed each other. You know, the fantasy.
It just didn't work. I don't think.
Yeah, I quite liked it.
Okay, and Motherland, which was let me just cue that up because we haven't talked about that yet. Motherland, which is written by 4 people. Sharon Horgan, Graham Linehan's wife, and Holly Walsh.
Yeah. Too many cooks.
Too many.
Yeah. Too many cooks.
Too many. Do the whole 9-minute version, Luke.
It takes a lot to make a stew.
A pinch of salt and laughter too.
A scoop of kids to add the spice.
A dash of love to make it nice. And you've got
too many cooks.
Too many cooks.
Too many cooks. Too many cooks. Too many cooks.
Too many cooks.
Too many cooks.
It takes a lot to make a stew.
When it comes to me and you.
And him and her and the baby too. Too many cooks, it's true.
They say it goes, it'll spoil the broth.
Honey, I think that's not true.
Well, maybe too many cooks will spoil the broth, but they'll fill our hearts with so much love. Too many cooks. A family is like a soup.
Everyone adds an extra scoop.
Mix an ounce of a smile so sweet.
A dash of cool to add the heat. And you've got
too many cooks.
Too many cooks.
Too many cooks. Too many cooks. Too many cooks. Too many cooks. Too many cooks.
Too many cooks.
Too many cooks.
Too many cooks.
Too many cooks.
Too many cooks.
Too many cooks. Too many cooks. Too many cooks.
Too many cooks.
Oh, we could.
So basically, this was about Anna Maxwell Martin's character, who was sort of a harassed mum of 2. Basically, followed the day of her trying to find someone to look after her kids, and she sort of encountered the sort of council of mothers led by Lucy Punch's sort of haughty. Like in all Graham Linehan sitcoms, you get these sort of three outsiders, don't you? You've got it in the
They
IT
gang together.
Father Ted and in Black Books, and in this you've got Anna Maxwell Martin, you've got Diane Morgan, is it?
Diane Morgan.
Yeah.
And the guy, the actor, do we know?
No.
I can't think of his name.
The single dad who's
Yeah.
trying to get in with the sort of popular mums. I thought this was okay. I think it showed. I think it's one of these where all the other critics really like it, and we're
Yeah.
I thought it was all right, and it did to me feel like we've got to get all this plotting because this is his setup episode. So by the end, we get these three characters together, so we can then go on with the rest of the series. But I did think, as Luke said, too many cooks.
Too many cooks. A family is like a soup.
Everyone adds an extra scoop.
Mix an ounce of a smile so sweet.
A dash of cool to add the heat. And you've got
Too many cooks.
too many cooks.
Too many cooks. Too many cooks. Too many cooks. Too many cooks. Too many cooks.
Before people wrote it, it makes more sense because it did feel very disjointed. It did feel like 2 or 3 comedies put together.
But like the cringy bits, you could tell was Sharon Horgan.
Yeah.
The sort of more.
Well, Holly Walsh is a new mother, so I'm guessing that there's, some sort of
Holly
not
Walsh-
new mother. So
Right.
Holly Walsh
Dead
and
Boss
Sharon
did
Horgan.
that.
Holly Walsh and Sharon Horgan wrote Dead
Wrote
Boss
Dead
together.
Boss.
Yeah.
yeah. I liked the bit where she turned up at school on the wrong day,
That was all. The first 5 minutes were very funny, I thought.
but
And
that gag carried on just that little bit too long when it got to the bit where they called up the mother of the child that she claimed was bullying, which was the excuse. It was just like, yeah, we understand that you've tried to lie your way out of it, but then it just got weird and it was just
that's
too weird. Like,
that is a very Sharon Horgan-y.
yeah, what they wanted to do was kind of get to a point at the end where these 3 groups of people were together, the families and the 3 people were together. So it felt more like a...
But that's
a
definitely
pilot.
going to get a series, I reckon.
Yeah. But I just don't know if we've not seen it all before.
So-
Let me cue you up again. So I don't know why Adele's Hello was how they got clearance for that.
Well, this brings me nicely onto our girl, Luke. Because,
Does it?
I was thinking about when, in the beginning of Our Girl, I know, Gary, you haven't seen this yet, so I'll try not to spoil as much of it as possible, but we learn the Michelle Keegan character, Georgie, and her her fiancé, their favourite song
Elvis.
is... Their favourite song is...
She moves
Hello?
in her own way.
She
by
moves
the
in her
Kooks.
own way by the Kooks, and it's like, we couldn't get the music rights to anything recent. That's what that
Seriously,
felt like
is that
to
the
me.
reason?
That is what it felt like to me.
Yeah,
because
that song's from
like 10 years old.
2006 or something.
Yeah.
He would have been about 7 at that point.
Yeah, they're both in their early.
Something,
They're both in their early 20s, aren't they? So they would have.
Blooming millennials.
And so I
Maybe.
can't see that song being their favourite one, but it's
No.
probably like cheap because we spent all the money on blooming Adele for Good
And
Night
explosions.
Well, that
Yeah.
and sending them to what looked like a desert.
South Africa.
What do you think of the opening titles for this? Because they're very
That's the
bizarre.
only bit I've seen, and I
What
was
do you think of the
weirded
opening
out.
titles, Gary?
It looked weird. She's kind of throwing this doll around or something.
Well,
isn't
it's like
it?
an action. But does she throw a doll down and then picks up an action man or something?
That's it, yeah. And then it's all shot in kind of like slow motion.
To be fair, I did do that this morning.
Oh, fair enough.
Oh, but you picked the
I-
doll back up.
Yeah, I did. I thought I can't leave you
Still
on the
playing.
floor, darling.
But it seemed out of place.
It's hard
get-
to talk about this without spoiling it for the one person who hasn't seen it, but
I'm okay.
again, Matt's review goes into more depth, but suffers again, I think, from the same problem that the original series did. Michelle Keegan does an okay job filling Lacey Turner's army boots, but the problem is the dialogue's just too clunky. There's a bit in it when Georgie lands in what is... Where's it supposed to be?
Kenya.
Africa? Is it
Kenya.
Kenya.
Mogadishu.
Her male army colleagues say to Captain James, who I can never decide if he can't act or he just gets cheesy lines to say. It's one or the other. But they say to him, "Oh, you've got moves like Jagger, sir." Whoever says that to anyone? It's a pathetic line of dialogue. There is a lot of bad dialogue that just clunks together, and I cannot work out.
It's when
whether the
writing the soldiers, isn't it? It's writing the sort of supporting soldier characters and they have like army consultants. They were at the screening, and it's like I don't think I hated the dialogue as much as you did.
I think
But
it just takes you out of it.
It's the sexism, I think, isn't it? It's that aspect of it. I think.
Well, I can believe that happens, but it's just the way they address it is just doesn't ring true
It's
at all.
almost like he's quite uncomfortable there. He wants to get to the sort of the crisis centre and stuff like that. Those scenes where I think it shines more.
How many are there?
5.
Five.
I like the fact that it's not sort of, you're not in the foxholes of Afghan again. You're sort of in this refugee camp in this centre.
But I will say, if you get to the end of episode 1, folks, then you'll need to watch episode 2. If I could have if I could have watched episode 2 after the end of episode 1, I would have. I think it's very gripping, and I think it wastes too much time on this clunky dialogue.
Well, it wastes about 25 minutes in the UK at the beginning. We get all the sort of stuff about her
on her love life. I mean, I think it does Michelle Keegan and the show a disservice. If it was called Our Boy, it wouldn't be about his girlfriends all the time. Why does it have to be about her love life because she's a woman? I think it's unfair and does the show a disservice. The action sequences are really well done and really believable and really tense.
There is actually, in the second episode, it is mainly, there's hardly anything about sort of romance. It is mainly
because even the first series, we bemoaned his seemingly insistence on putting Lacey Turner with Ben Aldridge, who again I don't think can act, so they didn't really work well together. It's just the overnights don't look good for it. 9 million for the Bake Off, 3.8 for Argo, which means nearly DCI Banks, and I don't have the figures for that. That means 6 million people turned off.
Well, yeah, it did go up against the opening ceremony of the Paralympics.
That only got 2 million, so that means 6 million people turned off.
I think a lot of the people who watched this, though, if you remember when we interviewed Tony Grounds last time, he was saying it was a lot of young people who watched it, and I think it will rise on Consolidate.
You think the overnights and things are a bad example of what
I think, as we've said before about this, young people don't tend to watch the linear TV. I think the Bake Off audience is very much sort of Middle England's.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think that's why we struggle with it? Because it does cater to particularly young girls? Because that's got to be the only reason why
that's what Tony said last time. He got lots of letters, didn't he, from like young girls from impoverished backgrounds who said,
so the three of us are not well versed.
I didn't think that I could do what I wanted to do until I saw this. Like Molly was an inspiration. Like, because she went off to the army, I can maybe sort of do acting and stuff like, I'm from a similar background to her. But Georgie didn't seem to be that sort of impoverished background, because obviously Molly's she was in like a flat, wasn't she, with all her brothers and sisters. They could certainly afford a good wedding at the Manchester Cathedral.
It might be cheaper than you think in Manchester. I've not been there for a while.
Well, they did get that for an episode of Don't Tell the Bride, if I remember correctly. That was
there you are.
They just give it away.
But I think I enjoyed it, and the second episode I think is stronger, which is interesting for a drama. Usually the other way around. Should we move on to Bake Off? Have you seen Bake Off?
I have seen Bake Off. Yes.
Okay, so Bread Week. Lots of undercooked dough, which was a bit severe.
Yeah, I didn't. There was one thing that I hadn't worked out from before. Apparently, those that come very highly in Bread Week are those that make it to the final.
Well, that's what Paul Hollywood said. He said the star baker on Bread Week has never not got to the final.
And he
was the phallic bread at the end.
Yeah, he was Thor's hammer and a snake. Right. There was to be fair, the kind of thing that they showed, like Selassie's was just made up on the spot. There was a very strange week because the old lady who we don't like won the technical, but then seemed to be in trouble.
I didn't think Michael should have gone. Certainly in the signature he did well, and he was sort of top. He was sort of higher end of the table in the technical, and then it's like, we need to get rid of someone. They seemingly didn't want to get rid of Candice. I felt like she should have gone.
You kind of feel like she's being a little bit protected.
Yeah.
I think she has got more talent, actually. I just think that they're trying to say...
Val should have gone by now.
Well, yeah, I'm beginning to wonder whether there's a reason why she hasn't, because otherwise they had... Because didn't they get rid of the old guy last year? And then apparently there was a lot of old people viewers that were very upset. Norman, that's it. And he went quite early, and then apparently there was, letters to points of view,
Okay.
So
And
maybe
also now I feel like I don't need to know anything else about Damp Noodle. I know everything I ever need.
I feel like we're damp noodled out.
Yes, we're done. We're done
But
with the damp.
this is the point. Once we get less contestants, you get more fringe things, don't you? You get more of Mel and Sue taking you on a visit to a bakery and a